Howdy travelers, welcome back. This here is Trav. Thanks for stopping by on another nice day. In fact, today's a really nice day because it's my birthday. But I did want to get a video out for you guys, and it's going to be a step-by-step breakdown of the rotating beehive we put on our tech server the other day. I kind of wanted to go a little more in detail on it because I didn't quite get the reception I wanted, and not for selfish reasons, but I think that the applications of this is more important. So more people need to understand that this is a very easy way to build a bee farm and scale it to however large you want it to be, but it's also just as effective and much simpler to make and much cheaper than the other ones you're seeing on YouTube. And we're going to talk about why. So let's first take kind of a look at the farm in action, and then we'll break it down to its parts, and then we'll do a step-by-step tutorial. So thank you for stopping by. If you do think I deserve it by the end of this video, don't forget to support it. So let's take a look at this thing. So it's based off of a rotating hive concept. So there's a hive feed tape down here that's rotating these hives around. And since we're able to rotate these hives, that kind of opens the door to things. Well, first, we can make the farm as big as we want. In my, on the survival server, I think I've got like 9 hives or 8 hives, but you can make this as big as you want it. And it's not going to cost you many more resources. It's not like the other tutorials on YouTube where you got to have a separate dispenser and analysis and all that and a part pickup for each hive. This you don't have to. So because we're rotating it, we can put one analysis station. And what I mean by that is it's going to determine whether or not the hive is full based on its signal strength. And if it is, then it's going to turn on the dispenser. So it's not wasting any bottles. It's only dispensing when a hive is full. And then that bottle is collected through an item filter and put into our honey bottle. Okay, and then all of it is powered by a clock, and I've got a silent clock back here. So it's nice and quiet. There's the only moving parts of the feed tape up there. But the clock is variable, so depending on how large you make your machine, you can adjust the length of your clock. So just a clock, and the analysis station, only one of them, and you have a very simple, cheap farm that anybody can make. Okay, so let's take a look at this thing without all the extras on top so you can see exactly what's going on. Alright, so I have it turned on. There's a clock down here that is cycling depending on how many parts we put in. If you have a much larger farm, you're going to want fewer parts. And the reason for that is the idea of this is that your unloading station, which is here on this design, you want a hive to make it all the way around in about the time it takes for that hive to be filled with honey, okay, or to reach a power of 5. Now that is going to, it's going to vary depending on several things. One, the quickness of a hive being filled has some variance because the bees have variance to them. So it's not going to be the exact same every time, but also the size of your farm. You know, if I only have a few hives versus a whole bunch of hives, it's going to take longer for the hives to get all the way around, so I have to speed up each and every step they take. So the point is, if you have a larger farm, you're going to have it move quicker so it passes over the same spot twice. Okay, and then at this station, the hive is going to be analyzed if it's full. If it's full, then a dispenser underneath is going to spit out a bottle. It's going to grab the honey, and then it's going to put the honey into our barrel here, okay? And that's pretty much the essence of this, and then we have a lever to turn it on and off, not that way. Okay, so that's the basics. Let's break this thing down real quick. First thing you're going to want to do is find a nice little open spot where you're going to build it, and then decide how big you want to build it. All right, and to kind of give you a little bit of feedback on how to get this thing started, to get that many hives at whatnot early game, you can go out and you can gather a few hives to get started, a few nests. You only need one, but the more the better. But go grab a couple nests, go take a look in the flower fields, and you'll find the little couple oak trees kind of spread out in your flower field. There's a great spot where I found all of mine. Bring a few back, put them in a little room, put a campfire underneath, a couple flowers, and let them go for a little while. Then once you see the hive is full, come in here, take some shears, and shear them, so that way you can get the honeycomb. And then once you get the honeycomb, you craft 3 honeycomb, and then you're going to need 6 planks on either side of that, and you can make yourself a hive. And then once you get the hives, you could start populating your farm. And then once you get all those hives, come back in here and silk touch an empty nest or two and bring it into your farm and then start reproducing those bees to populate. Okay, so anyway, let's get into constructing this. Decide on how big you want this farm to be, and you want to sink these pistons into the ground. So we're going to put them like that. And that's going to make this thing look nice and neat. Let's put one over here, and let's put one here and see how they're going to make a feed tape here. And then let's put one lined up right there. So if I break all these out, you'll see those are all lined up into a nice square or rectangle or whatever pattern you want. All that I would suggest is to have no sides less than 3 blocks wide. Okay, so that looks very nice. So now what we need to do is we need to figure out what side is we're going to have our clock hooked up to. And for this example, we're going to have it hooked up to this side. So we're going to go to the other sides and we're going to wire these in. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to take observers and we're going to put them right here to the left of each of these, like that. The starter one won't need an observer because it's going to be running off a clock. Okay, so now it's time to wire these pistons up for the feed tape. So let's start here. We don't need to hook this one up automatically because that's going to run off a clock. So let's go to this one. We're going to start from the observer. The observer, once it detects a hive, is going to energize this block behind it. And then we can bring that power down like this. Put a piece of dust right there. We're going to want a block underneath our piston. And then we can go like this. Repeater, let's go ahead and put it on 4 ticks. And then just connect the 2 with dust. So that way when a hive comes in front of this, it'll push them. Okay? Oops. So let's do the same here. So we're going to bring the power down, block underneath our piston, and a 2x2 like this. Just like that. And you could tuck that stuff underneath, is fine. However you want to do it, it's up to you. I want this to be easily seen. Oops. Okay, so with all of those ones in, let's go ahead and get the clock hooked up to this. So what we're going to do, we're going to come over here. What I actually want to do is I want to get an observer underneath this to power it. So we're going to put an observer there, and then we can put this piston right back where it was. We're going to come down underneath here. Okay, and then we're going to have a comparator on this block. And that comparator is going to read 2 hoppers facing into each other. And then these are going to have blocks in front of them. And comparators reading out of those. Just like this. And then they're going to be blocks on top with comparators facing into those. 2 more hoppers like this. And then last but not least, 2 blocks here. And then we need some torches right there. What we could do is we could put one item into these ones on that one on the front, and this is where we're going to pull the bulk of ours. So a good place to start is about a full stack and 15. And that's good for about, probably about 10 nests or so. And then if you have fewer nests, then have fewer parts in there. If you have more nests, if you have more nests, have fewer items in there. If you have fewer nests, have more items in here. That's how it should work. And it'll just take a little bit of practice to get the hang of it. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is we need to have our unloading station. Where you put it is completely up to you. Well, let's go ahead and put it over here. And so what that's going to do, let's say there's a hive right here. We're going to have a block and a comparator reading out of that. Okay, and then this comparator is going to have another comparator feeding into that. So put this one on subtraction. And then we're going to take a furnace. And we're going to put 42 items into this furnace. When you have 42 items in a furnace, that's going to give you a power level of 4. When you have a full hive, you're going to have a power level of 5. So if you subtract that from that, put a block here, bring that pulse down, that will only light up if the hive is full. And then what that's going to do is it's going to charge this block, and then we're going to put our dispenser right there. Now that we have our dispensing system in, before we put our bottles into here, let's go ahead and get our item sorter in. So what we need this to do is the first hopper is going to point into nowhere. Okay, so just have it point sideways. And the next hoppers are going to point to where our chest is going to be. Now, I don't want to send them right underneath this because this block is going to be powered every now and then. So how about we instead send them out to right here. So let's do this like that. And then out here, this is where we're going to have our storage. One thing you could do is, if you want, you could just put a trap door right there. So from the surface, you could just reach down and grab your honey bottles. Okay, so we're going to come back here. We're going to place a block against this bottom one. Compare to reading out of that. Into 2 blocks. Torch on the end. Dust on the top. That is going to drop down here, energizing this dust, energizing that block. Heater here, which is going to lock this hopper. We're going to make some sorters. Let's chuck an anvil down. Get something you want to sort with. And we're going to need some honey bottles. Okay, and with that ready, we're going to go into this top hopper, and we're going to put 15 filter items into here. Just like that. And that holds your honey, and it'll leave 1 bottle. So once this is set up, you're good to go, and then you can start taking empty bottles, and just take your empty bottles and you can throw them right up in this dispenser. They're not going to get sucked through, and when one of them gets spit out, it grabs honey and comes back in, it's going to get drawn right through here, and it's going to be collected and sent to our chest right here. Okay, so now the only thing we have left to do is start to add our hives, and I suggest doing this without bees in them, and bring the bees in last. That way you can build the room around it. Alright, so starting with the piston on the clock, you're going to have blocks there. You're going to have a space here. Doesn't matter what way they face. You're going to have a space here, and you're going to have a space here. Just like that. So that one's going to push that into that space, then that space, and bring it right back to there. Okay, so now before we close this all in, we need to make sure, oh, right there it just cycled. We need to make sure there's no gaps under. You need to come under here. You need to fill in all of these gaps. All right, there, there, there. All right, make sure there's no gaps. And then the last thing you want to do is underneath all these hives, put blocks, keep bees in. Just like that. And these little areas right here, just close them in so they, even if they were to eject from the bottom of the beehive, they can't escape, and they'll just go back up into the next hive. just like that. Doesn't have to be glass, but the point is you want to just enclose them, so that way if they can get out from underneath the nest, that there's nowhere for them to go. Alright guys, so now it's time to start closing this thing in. And ideally what you want to do is have more flowers than nests. You want to keep these bees busy, so you always have a few pollen butts staging, ready to go into hives, and there's no bees with nothing to do. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go around at the same X and Z as our pistons. So we can go ahead and cover them up, so that way this looks nice. Everything is hidden. In fact, we can make this block grass. We can fill this in now. We can fill this in now. To get our on-off switch, we're going to come over here, so right next to this piston. Let's break these for now. And let's grab a lever and a sticky piston. So we'll put a sticky piston down next to that nest. That locks those two hoppers. So if I were to put a redstone lamp here, break this, put dust, and if I were to put dust right here and a lever here, then that turns the machine all on. Okay, so that's going to be our first layer. We're going to have flowers in here, flowers on there. Now we can start to fill this thing in and trap these bees in here. Oh, let's move that lever to the outside. Now, how you design this is completely up to you. I like to give them a decent amount of room so they're not choked in there, and it's nice to have them, nice to look at them. I like to put double length flowers at the bottom level so you can kind of see them from out here. So we can bring this up another level. And then what I like to do is add at least one more shelf going up with more flowers. Give them plenty of flower. I always want to see a couple pollen butts. If you don't have any with pollen on their butt, then you have too many bees, or too many nests, too few bees, and too few plants. You kind of want to balance it out. You always want the bees to just be just enough plants for just the right amount of bees for the amount of nests you have. And I like to have about 3 bees per nest. So if you have 10 nests, get about 30 bees. And then try to get them, about half that in plants or 2/3 of that in plants. So maybe like 20 plants or so. Yeah, this will be nice, because then what we could do is we could put a nice little shelf here. More flowers. And that'll be plenty enough. And this one could be 1 high flowers, that's fine. So then we can bring this ceiling in right here. Close them all in. And you could start with a couple nests. You bring a couple nests in here, and then, stuff a couple nests in the corner, and then just start breeding those bees like crazy until you have all the bees you want. Let's get a few lights in here. Now it's time to get some bees in here. And you would just do this by bringing in a few nests. And just have a few nests in here and just keep breeding them every day for a few days. Until you get a whole pile of them in here that you're happy with. Get enough bees in there, so there's usually just a couple extras that can't get in at night, then you're set. And then just make sure you have plenty of flowers. And then as you watch them for the first few days, just pay attention to them as they all come out. And as they get to work, and they're going to take a little while to get pollen on them. But just make sure you always have a couple bees with pollen on their butts. So that way there's always a few cycling in. And when some cycle out of their nests, then there's already more ready to go into nest. And we did get one that got loose. But here's where you're going to notice whether or not you have gaps underneath. You have to pay attention here, make sure none of these guys get out. And just like that, you have an awesome, simple honey farm that's infinitely expandable. And it's cheap compared to some of the other designs. Does not use much redstone. So I hope you guys enjoyed. That's really all I can say about this thing. It works very well. I'm loving the one in my survival world. It's working great. Thank you for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in. If you think I deserve it, don't forget to support the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. You guys are awesome. Once again, this is Trav. Have a great day. Bye for now.